Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Daniel.
And this is Sam.
And we are
the Kwak Brothers.
And in this video, we're going to talk about the future of the housing market, especially in 2022. Recently, we've had a lot of big names, a lot of big data companies coming out making predictions left and right on what they believe is going to happen with the housing market. So we're going to talk about what are they saying and also what do we think based on what we're seeing actually in the trenches being real estate investors, what we believe is going to happen to the housing market in 2022.
So consider this to be our official 2022 housing market prediction. And we're going to start with what is the benchmark as far as growth, okay? What is considered growth and what is considered slowdown? Now, Fortune magazine since 1980 has calculated that home prices have been going up by 4.6% every year. So that's just the average number since 1980. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to use that as the average number and compare that against what a lot of these different companies are saying. So the first company that we're going to mention is Zillow. As you guys know, we talked about them a few weeks ago with their utter failure of their iBuyer program. But Zillow is saying that we're going to see a 13.6% growth forecast between October 2021 to October 2022. Now, this is surprisingly a large number compared to our 4.6% benchmark. And one of the reasons why they say it's 13.6% of growth is because we're going to see a lot of first-time home buyers, the millennial crowd, turning 30 years old the first time, which happens to be the average age to where a lot of the first-time home buyers enter the market. So Zillow is seeing this trend where in the next 5 years, we're going to see a lot of millennials turn 30, able to buy, able to qualify, and that's one of the big reasons why Zillow is saying that they're predicting a 13.6%.
And granted, you're right. They're utterly unsuccessful in their ability to create a real estate investing company. However, if you think about a 13.6% growth between October of this year and next year, it's not that far off.
No,
if you think
plausible.
about September of 2020 and September of 2021, we saw a 15.6% growth over there as well.
Yeah.
Now, here's the real question. How much of that growth between 2020 and 2021 was not because of actual supply and demand, but actually more so due to inflation?
Right.
Because we can't forget, inflation went from below 2% in 2020 to now in 2021, since the dude got inaugurated, right? Who shall not be named. Inflation is now at 5.47%.
Yeah.
So how much of that is responsible due to inflation, not because of actual growth in the housing market?
Yeah, and I think that's the next company we're talking about is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which is a quasi-government company. They're predicting actually a 7.9% growth and 7% respectively. So it seems like actually Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac is considering the inflation
for sure
as a factor in play. Because really, when you think about it, when dollar has inflated and Zillow, let's say Zillow hasn't accounted for the inflation, really it seems like Zillow and Fannie Mae are on par factoring inflation. So Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, big company responsible in securitizing these mortgages.
Right.
That's what they're saying.
Sure. And it might not be that far off again, because recently Jerome Powell said in his address with the Federal Reserve that inflation, he no longer claims it as transitionary. So there it is. We finally got the man to admit what we've been saying this entire time. So again, that 7.9, 13.6 may not be far off. But on the other hand of the spectrum, right, we have organizations like Redfin and CoreLogic who are saying respectively that they foresee a 12-month price growth falling to 3% and 1.9% respectively.
So that's lower than the Fortune magazine average number we're using as a benchmark. So Redfin, surprisingly, Redfin and Zillow are pretty much in the same business, right? Both looking to get data. They're also facilitating sales, right? But Redfin, unlike Zillow, is taking more of the opposite approach of 3% to 1.9%. And I think one of the big reasons why they're predicting it that way is because we're seeing taxes go up for income, right? We're also seeing interest rates go up. And, Federal Reserve just came out and said they're going to taper bonds much quickly than they thought because, what Daniel said, Jerome is now acknowledging the fact that inflation may not be a temporary or transitory thing.
Then to cap it all off, we have the Mortgage Bankers Association, obviously another very well-accredited organization putting their 2 cents in, actually is predicting that the median price of existing homes will actually decrease by 2.5% between fourth quarter of 2021 and the fourth quarter of 2022. And we wrap it all up with Realtor.com predicting that rent growth will surpass housing price growth and rents will increase at a rate of over 7% in 2022. So Realtor.com is saying, hey, forget housing prices.
Forget about it.
We think that rent is going to surpass much more significantly than the cost of housing. And then obviously the MBA, Mortgage Bankers Association, is saying that it's going to decrease. It's the opposite. So we're seeing a spectrum here going all the way from negative 2.5% all the way to 13.6%, which, according to
Yeah,
Zillow.
I mean, it's everywhere. So they're, again, nowhere near consistent. It seems like none of these guys agree with each other in terms of what's going to happen in 2022. Now, before we get to what we think and who we more so side with, and in fact, this is going to be the first conversation that Daniel and I are going to have about this. But before we do, make sure you subscribe and let me know what you guys think. Comment down below. Love to hear your guys' thoughts as to what do you guys think for 2022? Are we going to see a massive growth like what Zillow is predicting? Or are we going to see a more of a colder, we're going to see a price cool down like the MBA is predicting to be at negative 2.5%. So what do you think, Daniel? What do you ultimately think 2022 is going to roll out, and what is it going to look like?
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's start with the obvious, and then we'll work our way into kind of the more sophisticated, I guess, logistics, right? But obviously, we talked about on this channel, a lot of people are talking about it. Obviously, the rates that are going to increase with the Federal Reserve. Now, I don't believe it's going to completely stop individuals from buying homes, right? If anything, it pushed a lot of people to refinance while the rates were super low. But I think more so, it's going to I guess slow it down a little bit, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to stop it. Right? People are still going to buy their homes, but it is potentially going to cause a little bit of a slowdown. But there are so many other aspects and factors that are happening in the housing market that contributes towards potentially sustainability or increase, like Zillow is saying.
Yeah, so again, the rates are definitely going to go up. I've been saying this for the last 6 months. It has to with inflation. One of the ways to combat inflation is to increase the rates. Now, I think, and Daniel can disagree or agree, I think their first move is they're going to test the waters a little bit by increasing rate to 0.25%. Now, this is the Fed fund rate, not your mortgage rate, right? You don't get those types of rates with mortgages. The Fed fund rate is going to be at 0.25%. I think they're going to test the water and see how the market reacts. I think stock market's going to react very interestingly. We're going to see red days. We're going to see some red, and we're going to see. I think we're going to see less buyers for sure, but will that ultimately stop people from wanting to buy?
Well, let's look at the pros and cons, right? So let's look at the one side for, hey, these are the arguments for why housing is going to either go down or not grow, right? So along the lines of what the MBA said. So we already discussed one aspect, which is that the rates are going to go higher, right? Obviously making them a little less affordable for your current qualified buyers, right? But on the other hand, we have something that a lot of people have talked about, which is the supply chain issue.
Yeah.
Right. We have aspects like, hey, homes aren't being built not only because of supply shortages, but also because of labor shortages. There's stories I'm hearing left and right of individuals who want to do glass windows and doors and whatnot, and we can't do them. You got to wait 12 months, and the materials, the labor, and it is getting ridiculous. So the argument could be made is, hey, there is a finite number of houses that need to be built every single year to keep up with the population growth. And that's not happening because of the labor shortage and the supply shortage. So we have those two really strong arguments on that end as to why the price of homes will not continue to rise. If anything, it potentially it actually may even make the housing market even worse.
Right. Yeah, because again, the theme of our channel has been really when we talk about the housing market for the last 3 to 6 months, is that we're lacking inventory. The population grew beyond what we were building in the last 10 years in terms of new housing units, new apartments. So there's just simply not enough housing for everyone. And that's just what it is right now. But what's also interesting related to the labor market is that we're seeing less people work, right? Or what's happening is that they were at a job, but maybe they decided to start a business or they start working for themselves. So what's interesting is that by next year, we're gonna see less qualified individuals in terms of how they can qualify for a mortgage, which could take some buyers out of the game that can help with the inventory shortage and this whole crazy housing market right now. So it's another interesting theory to talk about and think about and ponder. The other thing to consider is that evictions and foreclosures are now happening again. Of course, foreclosures will start in January of 2022. Evictions are already on their way. So we're starting to see, again, inventory come back to somewhat of a normal as foreclosures happen, or landlords who now wish to sell because they're getting tired of the whole eviction thing. We may see some more inventory being introduced in the market. So that's another thing to consider as well.
100%. So here's my ultimate opinion on what I believe is going to happen in 2022. We discussed a lot of really good points with the labor shortages and the supply, right? We talked about the interest rate. But here's something that not a lot of people talk about, especially amongst other YouTube content creators, other finance channels. Here's something I never heard mentioned is the fact that let's talk about the rent prices.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when you look at housing market, you got to look at rent prices because a lot of times individuals, especially the ones that, Zillow talked about, Redfin talked about, the prime 5 years, right? Of, hey, millennials, they turn 30, this is the time you want to buy a house, et cetera, et cetera. We haven't talked about how for these individuals, a lot of them went to the rental market because they've been priced out of the housing market the last 12 to 18 months. I'm willing to bet, if I'm a gambling man, which I'm not, right? But if I'm a betting man, I'm willing to bet, and I will put money that the rent increase, a lot of that has to do with the fact that these millennials, people our age, have been priced out of the housing market. Yeah. And as rents continue to rise, people are gonna say no more.
Yeah.
No more. It's time for me to start buying a house. We're starting to see a little bit of a slowdown in the housing market. The minute they get a small piece of fresh air, they're gonna go, boom, honey, we need to buy a house because rent is going up and we can't take it anymore.
Yeah. So your thought is we have pretty much hemped up invisible buyer demand right now that's ready to go. Really, all it takes is someone lighting the lighter, right? Again, and then we have a massive
and not only that, but how many people did we see in their 50s and 60s who says, you know what, honey, now is the time for us to sell the home because the prices are at all-time highs. We talked about downsizing for years. Johnny and Kim has been off to college for years now. Maybe now is the time to sell our home and let's get a lease for 6 months or 9 months while we try to find a condo, or maybe we try to find a nice little townhouse or something, right? But I think in the year 2022, I'm actually going to agree with Fannie and Freddie. I think we're going to see somewhere around the lines of 6 to 8% increase in 2022, because yes, there are a lot of things that people will argue and say, "Oh no, we're gonna see prices go down. We're gonna see, there's gonna be inventory coming in because of foreclosures. We're gonna see rates go up." Yes, that's true. I'm not disagreeing with that. But because again, of what we talked about with supply shortages, the supply chains, the labor markets, that prevents inventory from coming in. That prevents new builds.
I think what we're really gonna see again, you're absolutely right. Inventory we're bottlenecked by it. I think what we're gonna see in 2022 is gonna be this weird transition period where it's gonna cool down just a bit, but I think towards the end of the year, maybe Q3 or Q4, we're going to see just a massive explosion because it's a teeter-totter, right? As soon as people start to see a bit of a sign of cooling, I think there's going to be that pent up demand that's going to come out of nowhere, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, like we're repeating this whole crazy housing market, like just insane amount of spike in prices again. And I think right now at this point, a housing market crash is out of the picture. It's nowhere even
not for 2022.
No,
there's just too much money being pumped into the system,
right?
And it's artificial. It's inflationary. Again, the man said himself, it's not transitionary.
So
anymore.
I think any kind of fiscal or monetary policy in terms of the Fed raising interest rates, taxes going up, I think will be overshadowed by the real issue at hand, and that is a supply. Just not enough inventory. There's going to be a lot of pent up demand, just like what Zillow is citing, but it's not going to be as aggressive as what Zillow is saying at 13.6%.
And I don't think inflation is going to be a big of a part as it was in 2021 in the pricing of homes as well.
Yeah, so I think we're definitely going to see more of that 7% number, to be honest, and then maybe wind up with more of a 10% number by the end of the year,
perhaps.
So all that to say, in a plain English, it's not over, right? I mean, is it going to be super hot? Not like this year? Probably not. Will it stay warm? Yes. Lukewarm at least. So right now, the best thing to do is if you're buckling up for any kind of crash, sorry, it's not going to happen. Really, the best thing for you to do, if you're investing like us, the best thing to do is figure out the different strategies on how to make money in this market. Okay, Daniel and I like to say, the smartest investors figure out how to make money in any market condition, right? Whether the market's going up, down, sideways, upside down, whatever the case might be, smart investors know how to make money in any market condition. Right. So any closing thoughts?
No, I mean, not a lot of closing remarks, just that actually later this month, we're actually gonna be releasing a video titled Top 3 Things to Invest in the year 2022. And it actually won't be real estate specific. We're gonna look at all the assets across the board.
So yeah, definitely stay tuned for that video. Definitely subscribe. Here's what you can do for 2022. And I think ultimately, I think you're still safe in buying and holding. I think you're still safe in buying and holding. Short-term leases are great right now. 6-month leases.
They're just super pricey.
Super pricey, yes. I think it's still going to be worth it. I think the rent prices will continue to stagger and continue to go up. The other side to that is foreclosures are starting to happen again. So we're going to see a little bit more short sales happening. So if you've been doing short sales, or if you don't know what a short sale is, now's the time to learn and figure out what that is. And you can get some really cool deals in short sales, maybe even auctions for foreclosures, subject to transactions, which we talk about with our owner financing videos. So I think there's still opportunities to look at short sales, owner financing. You could definitely look at auctions. Right? Flips, right? And I think the other thing we talked about, Daniel, with the infrastructure bill that just got passed is buying land. right? And again, this is not a financial advice, not an investment advice, but buying land might be something of a use right now, especially when we have this massive demand for inventory. So just a little thing to walk away with, guys, for sticking around for this long with our video.
All right, so with that said, guys, comment down below what you guys think about what's going to happen in 2022, and also what you guys are thinking about buying. Are you planning on buying land? Are you planning on buying virtual land? Perhaps even a virtual yacht in the metaverse that just got sold for $650,000.
Yeah.
But with that said, guys, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching this video and liking this video as well, and we'll see you guys in the next one.